Hey everyone, how you doing? Just wanted to, I know right now in the media, across all the platforms, a lot of stuff been going on with censorship and, Facebook fact checkers and all this other garbage. It's all kind of interesting, censoring as a public company, like Facebook and stuff. They certainly have the right to censor whatever they want. They're a private company. But they hide behind this classification that they're a purveyor of just information. It's kind of interesting. They consider themselves more of a platform rather than an actual organization. It's really weird how it's classified. But basically, the way things like Facebook are so intertwined with their day-to-day life, it seems unfair that they do any sort of censoring, right? And that's what people are up in arms about, especially right now with the campaigns going on and Trump and Biden going back and forth. There's a lot of disinformation or whatever, or evil Russians everywhere. And, it's really, if you deny the fact that there is an inherent bias towards conservatives on the major social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, you just got your head in the sand. It's blatantly obvious, right? But that's okay. There can be a bias. But the problem is Facebook introduced this thing called the fact checkers, right? That they leverage. And really all this is for a way for them to pass off the problem of censorship, right? So they can hide behind a third-party service, said you're lying, so it's not our problem, go talk to the third party. It's just passing the buck. That's all it's doing. But I wanted to look into the Facebook fact check process, because they're notoriously bad. They'll do fact checks on Babylon Bee, which is a completely satire site. Yet in their fact check thing, they said they try to identify satire. It's like, okay, here's a site that literally says it's a satire site, but they still fact check it every time. So it's really pathetic. But anyhow, Facebook fact checking, right? Let's take a look at it. How it works. This is what they do. They identify, review, and act. They identify using some sort of black box algorithm. They tell you right here, how do we identify? We use a number of signals to predict content that might be misinformation and surface it to fact checkers. So, right there, they've completely left themselves any obligation to provide factual evidence of why it gets identified, right? They just say you use a number of signals. They don't describe what the signals are. They use a number of signals and they feed that information to the fact checkers. So they completely absolve themselves of any obligation towards validating their signals or making sure they're accurate or making sure they're not biased or whatever, right? And look at the 4 examples. The feedback from users, because all of us on Facebook, we're definitely pariahs fact checking. Seeing their news feeds as being, with the flag content news feed users do. Other user patterns, like people commenting and saying that they don't believe a certain post. I mean, how stupid is that? That's not what they're doing, right? Because I can go on every post I see and just, that's not true. I don't think that's true. Come on. That's not what you're doing. They also use machine learning. This is another beautiful thing that tech people like to use. Machine learning. They use that term because 90% of people don't even know what the hell that means. They just think, they have an algorithm. Or just figure it out. No, it's just a way for you to not dig any further. Make you think that it's too big for your brain. Machine learning models, there are algorithms and stuff that they use, I'm sure. But this term, machine learning, is just to throw you off the scent. Just to get you out of the way, basically. But they use machine learning to improve their ability to predict misinformation. Predict misinformation. Interesting, right? Predict it. Kind of interesting how that works, huh? They feed the ratings from our fact-checking partners back into this model so that we get better and better over time. things, right? So there's so many levels of culpability that they can escape from, right? Through this identify process. And it's quite interesting how it's all framed up. There's no detail, fact checkers. Who are the fact checkers? Well, they give you a list, but which ones? All of them? Do they all have to agree? Is there consensus they have to reach amongst all the fact checkers before it becomes misinformation or false? None of that details here, is there? And you've heard the stories, you've seen them. When people start challenging these things, it just becomes a nefarious black box of, it's what we want to do. And they review it. This is the review process. What ratings options can fact-checking partners choose from? False, altered, partly false, or missing context. Right? So this is what the fact-checkers can feed back into the system after they review the issue. And if you've ever seen a flag post, it'll have one of these four, right? And a brief little snippet of an explanation. And some of them are really just weak ass. Like partly false one I saw was they said, I forget what it was exactly, but it's just a semantic. Like they didn't say, like with the Biden thing, right? When Trump said Biden called black men and stuff during his crime bill pandering or whatever, savages, but he called them he says savages, but Trump added another word before that, savages mark, and immoral savages or something like that. Trump added that piece, and so they flagged it as partly false, right? Does that seem like a valid flagging? Not necessarily, because there should be, of course, if you're Democrat, oh yeah, it's totally valid, it's totally false, right? But if you're someone with a brain, you're like, oh, he just added a little color, right? You take that away. Sure, I know that's not true, but why not link the actual quote? They didn't link the quote. They just said Biden never called them like immoral savages or whatever it was, right? They don't link the actual video where it shows Biden called them savages. So it's stuff like that. It's just so nefarious in nature. And so let's see. And then they act, right? They have to do all their black boxing over there. Then they act on it. They act on it. And these are the things they can do to people who post false information. Reduce their distribution, sharing warning, sharing notifications, misinformation labels, and removing incentives for repeat offenders. So this is for people who actually make money on these things. But some of us just, none of this is banning, but we've seen people get banned for this stuff, right? So I don't know where that plays into this whole thing. But the whole process is just, it's a load of dookie. It's just garbage. The way I think it should be is the only thing they should be censoring ever is like violence. People, because I remember when this stuff first started, people used to share videos of decapitations and stuff. We don't need to see that, right? And or rape or anything like that, and sexual stuff, pornography. People don't want to have that on Facebook. That's fine. Misinformation and stuff, the evil Russian campaigns. You have to let that stuff exist, because you have to believe that people are not so dumb to fall for it. And by acting on their behalf, you're saying you're an idiot, so I gotta take care of you. And that's what I don't like. I don't like someone thinking that they need to take care of me, or that I don't know how to figure out the truth. And that's where the real rub for me is. Censorship always comes from an area of, I know more than you do. I know what's best, not you. And that's something I hate. I hate when people present to me that attitude. It's like, let me decide what I want. Let me decide my mistakes. Let me decide my viewpoints. Don't tell me what to think. And this is why I think the whole Facebook fact-checking thing should just be scrapped. It's garbage. It's total garbage. It's inconsistent. It's black box. I say that a lot, because what a black box is just something goes in, you don't know what happens to it, and something comes out, right? That's what it is. It's like Schrodinger's box. You don't know what the state is of the crap in there. but when it's done, you get you get something, right? So it just should be scrapped. They should focus on just censoring the perverse stuff, like I've talked about, and things like that. We shouldn't allow people to make threats and stuff. I get that. We shouldn't have things like that. But this whole campaign around trying to suss out the truth and get rid of the lies, and it's totally subjective, right? Anything that's subjective should never be implemented. It really shouldn't, because it always relies on someone making a decision about the matter. Not the person, not me, not you, not the person, someone else out there making the decision what we should know. And that is a filtered truth, and you never want that. You should want everything to be unfiltered, and use this thing up here, the brain, and you figure out the truth. Don't have mommy and daddy hold your hands. And that's what bothers me the most. So, looking at this further, I thought to myself, okay, so say that Facebook flags you, right? How do you fix it? What do you do? What are the corrective actions? How do you dispute? So Facebook has a process they use for disputing or correcting. So you can correct it by altering the original post or whatever, or removing the shared article or whatever, or you can dispute it. So here's a corrections piece, a real nice long paragraph, what you can do, blah blah blah, and disputes. To dispute a rating, the publisher must clearly indicate why the original rating was inaccurate. That's not very good detail, is it? Okay. And they give you these little mail templates for appealing, right? And they're just bogus garbage templates. And you basically have to write an email to the third-party fact-checkers, not Facebook, because Facebook absolved themselves of any culpability or liability towards you getting flagged. They passed the buck to the third parties. So you have to send an email to them and go to them and dispute it with them. And they tell you right off the bat, it can take days, it can take time if you don't provide enough detail. They give you all these subjective reasons why it can be slow or delayed, and nothing detail oriented, which is again a tactic used to cushion the fact that you're probably not going to get around to doing it. And that's what usually happens. These third parties, they'll consume the emails and they don't do anything about it. And they can come back with a simple quip of, oh, you didn't provide this specific information. And if you provide it right away, they'll just sit in another inbox for another few days until they come back and say, oh, you didn't provide this. You see how it works? It's like insurance claims. They always deny the first claim. Everything's going to happen here. So you have to issue an email, and then they have fact checkers for every country. And in the United States, these are your fact checkers that they use for Facebook. You got AFP United States, Associated Press, which is laughable. Check Your Fact, I don't know too much about them. Dispatch, factcheck.org, another laughable one. Lead Stories, PolitiFact, another laughable one. Science Feedback, not much. Reuters, we'll see. And USA Today. Yeah, the cheap-ass newspaper they give you at every hotel. You gotta trust them. Okay. So anyhow, we go like AFP, fact check AFP, take a look at it. See what we got here. And these are, I don't know what the hell's going on there. Some sort of crazy hairdryer, or curling, I don't know. Busting coronavirus myths. Here's the articles they have on their pages, right? False claim circulates online that British research company Ipsos Mori derives its name from Latin for they die. Okay. Photo of former Thai PM's ex-wife wearing pro-monarchy yellow shared in misleading context. Yeah. Oh, here's the U.S. elections ones. So let's take a look at one of these. Let's see how they fact check it. We go in here, take a look. What they said, coronavirus response. Speaking about the coronavirus, Trump said 2.2 million people modeled out expected to die. We close up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease. Where does this figure come from? $2.2 billion or 2.2 million number. It's from a report by the Imperial College COVID-19 response team. What could happen if no action were taken at all? Okay. So now here's their subjective part. However, the high toll protection has always been considered an unlikely worst case scenario that would only occur if no preventative measures were taken. Generally, that's how projections are. In fact, most projections were garbage when this all first started, right? So we imposed the lockdowns, blah, blah, blah. Stands at more than 223,000. Okay, there's not wholly accurate. 1,000. So they really didn't dispute it. They just laid out a bunch of other facts. So I don't... What kind of fact checking is this? This is what the claim is, right? So where do you fact check it? You're not really fact checking it. You're just saying that that number comes from a model. So it's not inaccurate. It's from a model, and the model was accepted to be mistaken. Okay. But it doesn't mean he's lying about it. He actually said 2.2. So there should be a thing that says true. Okay. China policy. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. Tariffs imposed by Canada's taxpayers' money. Biden's characterization is accurate. As the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center notes, a tariff is almost always paid directly by the importer, usually a domestic firm, and never by the exporting country. Okay, I'll get that. Talking about trade, Biden said of Trump, he has caused the deficit with China to go up, not down. This is inaccurate. The U.S. trade deficit with China fell slightly to $344 billion. So the deficit has fallen. Okay, got it. Trump's tariff policy is aimed to reduce the trade deficit and end what he calls unfair trade practices. So, for his term, he's aimed to reduce the trade deficit, and they said it fell. So that's true. So, Urban Brookings, man. See, this is why fact checking is so stupid. Are you fact checking this claim? Are you fact checking this claim? What are you fact checking? So stupid. So stupid. Discussing race, an issue with higher public attention than in most election years after deaths of many black citizens, blah, 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 blah. Trump accused Biden of previously calling black men super predators. Okay, so he calls them super predators. The phrase super predators goes back to a crime bill co-written by Biden in the 1990s, but it was Hillary Clinton who said it. It was when she advocating for the legislation. He calls them predators, though. He did, right here. He did, however, warn of criminal predators when making a speech on the Senate floor. So this is interesting because I've seen this before. Trump says he used this term super predators, which he didn't say. He said predators, right? On the Senate floor. But the funny thing about it is, this goes back to when Trump, people like to say that he called all illegal immigrants rapists and murderers, when actually he's talking about MS-13 gang members. But all that's stuck in their heads was rapists and murderers, right? So I'm tempted to go search and see what they said about that. Oh, it's very tempting. But anyhow, you can see this. The way they must do it, they must put a couple different fact check things into a paragraph. It's kind of confusing. But it's false that Biden didn't say super predators, but it's true that he said predators. So, I guess he doesn't think they're very super. Anyhow, moving on. Check your fact. Here's another one. You can see these. You can go to all these sites. I'm not going to go through all these. Just wasted time giving them unwarranted traffic. But you can see the whole censorship thing around Facebook is just garbage. It should be scrapped. They should get rid of it. It's just Big Brother trying to take care of you like you're a child, right? Grow up, do your own fact checks, find your own information. None of this stuff that they're going fact checking is highly complex. It requires like a PhD to figure it out. It's pretty easy to figure it out. And the bottom line is, the fact checking, is it really going to deter the people that they're trying to deter anything? No. This is just another little layer of false security, because back in 2016, Hillary blamed the Russians on their, sinking her election. And there could have been interference, but if what they did is misleading stuff caused her to lose, then that means there's a lot of dumbass people out there, right? And so maybe we should focus on trying to solve that issue versus trying to be Big Brother everybody, So anyhow, censorship and social media, it just doesn't play well for me. I think social media should get out of that business. Just focus on keeping the certain prolific things that we don't want to see, alter violence, rape videos, pornography, stuff like that on your social media platforms, and leave the fact checking and the proving information is misleading or not up to the users. Users can do it, I think. I believe in people that have a couple brain cells they can rub together and figure it out. So anyhow, take care, y'all. Enjoy 2020 is almost over. Campaigns are almost over. So happy about that. But love y'all. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.